Welcome to another episode of So Not Scary. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how I made this Totoro Plushie journal cover using just scraps lying around my house and a little bit of cotton wool. Everything using my mini sewing machine and more. So let's go ahead and get started. Started off by downloading a simple Totoro image from Google Images, and I got 2 printouts. The idea is that I'll be keeping one printout mostly whole just to get the outline of it, and the other one I'm going to cut up into smaller pieces. So right now I'm just going carefully around the outline, making sure that I'm sticking as close to the outline as possible. And then with the other one, as you can see, I did cut out the ears, but I did not use the ears, so I didn't show you cutting those out. But here I cut the belly out, and then the nose out, and also you can see I've cut out one eyeball. Now I took some really high quality 100% pure felt, and I stuck the large Totoro cutout on top of the felt using some clear sticky tape. And I have used this method earlier in one of my videos, which I'll link up to down below. And as I did it, what the tape is doing is keeping it nice and flush with the felt, so it's really easy for me to cut it out accurately. So here it is, I'm cutting all the way around it. And because the tape is keeping the paper really flush with the felt, it's just super easy. I did use a sharp pair of scissors, but not my main fabric scissors because I'm really careful with those large scissors of mine. So there's the big felt cut out. Now for the belly of Totoro, I thought of doing something different, and I used this pretty garment fabric, which is 100% pure cotton. And I stuck some applique paper to the back of it using a hot iron, and I traced out the belly on that paper. Then when I cut around that paper very carefully, you can see that I ended up with a very accurate cutout of the belly shape. I used a pin to make an incision on the back of the paper, and then I peeled the paper off. And I ended up with a lovely precisely cut piece of fabric that I can now hot press onto the piece of felt. There it is, all stuck out. And now I cut out that belly shape into further smaller pieces. And I'll be using my scissors to cut out those little curves or crescent shapes for the chest demarcations on Totoro. And this was really quick and easy, although a little bit fiddly, as you can see, so a smaller pair of scissors always helps. Always work through the concave curves first before going on to the convex. And as before, I used a piece of tape to stick the paper onto the felt, and this made it super easy to cut around. And now I cut around the pieces of fabric, and this resulted in some very accurately cut out pieces of felt. There it is. Now I used some fabric glue, and I bought this many months ago from Hobbycraft, which is a local craft store here in the UK. And I stuck on those pieces of crescent shaped felt onto Totoro's flowery chest. And this will help anchor those pieces in place before I sew them down. And I repositioned them exactly to where I wanted them. Now this you've not seen before. This is my green press, and it helps me do a lot of different things. It helps me create accurate circular cuts. It helps me punch out holes for eyelets. So I'm using this to cut out the circular shapes for the eyes. Even though I had cut out the eyes using my scissors, I just felt it wouldn't be accurate enough. So here's a piece of black felt, and I simply used the die cutter to cut out a piece of black circular felt. There they are. And they're cut out very accurately. And I similarly use a larger die to cut out white felt circles for the eyeballs. There they are. And now I use the same fabric glue to stick the whites of the eyes onto Totoro. And I realized that the blacks are a bit too large, so I used an even smaller circular die to cut out smaller pieces of black felt for the iris. And I stuck those on, and I used a pin to just kind of move it around to the place where I wanted them. Now for the nose, even though I used the original template, I realized that I don't really like the shape of it. It kind of looked like a mouth to me. I wasn't very happy with it, to be honest. Look at that. That looks almost like a mouth. I wasn't happy with it. I fiddled around with it. And then I decided I'm just gonna wing it. And I cut out my own nose. Well, not my nose, but a black felt nose. And I stuck that on, and I was much happier with the way this one turned out. There it is. I let the whole thing dry now. And then using some cheap gray thread, I hand stitched the little gray crescents onto Totoro's chest. Now, because our mini sewing machine cannot handle very small stitches, its stitch length is fixed, you can see that hand sewing was a much better option. And now I used a black thread to stitch down the nose and the irises of the eyes, and then a white thread to stitch down the eyeballs, the whites of the eyes. And up close you can see I just used a single strand of thread, and I did a simple, almost like a running stitch with very little tacks, just to anchor the eyeballs in place. Now to sew down the belly, we're going to go to the mini sewing machine. And there I am, and I used a white thread to sew all the way around the belly of Totoro. And once I did one line of stitches, I realized that I want to go over the whole belly one more time. So I actually went around this twice, and I did press down the presser foot with my little pair of scissors because the machine was struggling a bit. Now here's a tired looking old folder. It's got scribbles inside that my daughter had done when she was 2 years old, and it's all in all like used and tired looking, and that's what we're working with today. So in order to freshen it up, I used a piece of fusible interfacing. This is heavyweight fusible interfacing, and I took just enough length to cover it inside and out, covering up that crayon stain. And I ironed it onto the back of this lovely cotton fabric. This is medium weight cotton. And then I wrapped it one more time around the folder, making sure that there's enough of it to go around. I turned the edges in, making sure that everything fits in place, and I traced out the placement of Totoro where I wanted it onto the cover using a pencil. And I made sure that I'm sticking my pencil just behind Totoro's outline so that you can't really see the pencil from the outside. This is helping me position Totoro where exactly I want it. And then using my mini sewing machine, I carefully sewed the whole image down in place. Now, you will notice that I actually left a 1 inch or 1.5 inch opening, and this is to stuff the Totoro shape with. So here I am just going nice and slow because this was a large piece of fabric and it was reinforced as well, so it was stiff, so you have to kind of really maneuver it carefully. And once I reached the end, I left that 2 inch or 1.5 inch space, and I used these cotton balls and I just fluffed them up, and I used an old bamboo scratcher to just kind of stuff those cotton balls under the shape. And this way, very quickly, very easily, I was able to stuff the shape up, making it nice and plush. So you just have to make sure that you take your time stuffing it evenly in all the nooks and crannies, making sure that there are no lumps or air pockets, uneven ones in there. And then I just sewed the opening close, and I went all the way around the shape one more time. Then I realized that there is a big open space to the right of Totoro, so I once again cut out a piece of heart from the same cotton fabric. I cut out a heart shape, from the same cotton fabric, and I hand tacked it down. And then on either side, I folded the edge over twice, and I sewed a simple straight stitch just to finish off the right and left edges of that folder cover. I didn't even back tack or anything. Now flipping the folder inside out, I positioned it exactly where I want onto the fabric, and I pinned everything down using some simple tailoring pins. And this will help me position my stitches exactly where I need them to be so that they fit like a glove around the folder. And then once I'd pinned the whole project on either side, I used a pencil to draw out my stitch line. And this really helped me because I could just simply follow the pencil line instead of worrying about how to keep it straight or anything. Once I'd drawn that, I slipped the folder out and I just sewed down that line of pencil drawing that I'd done. And then I snipped off the extra fabric from the top and the bottom. And I also clipped the corners to reduce bulk. This edge was a bit wonky, I remember, but still it was fine because it's all going to be hidden away anyway. So snipping off the corners, I then turned the whole thing right side out and I gave it a good press. But there was one other problem I realized. I realized that the cover was still a bit too empty. So once I turned the corners out using my bamboo skewer, I pressed the whole thing out. And here you can see, even though it's done to an extent, it's still very empty. So I chose to free draw this leaf shape onto a piece of paper. And then I just cut it out using my paper scissors. And I followed the same system. I traced this onto the back of some applique paper, stuck it on onto some green felt, and I cut it out. So I separated the stalk from the leaf. There it is. And then here I am cutting the felt out. And this gave me some really nice, accurately shaped pieces of felt to work with. Here I'm just drawing out some leaf veins with a pencil. And I chose to kind of hand sew some veins onto it using a simple running stitch. But before that, I just removed the applique paper. So once the paper came off very easily, I used some green thread to hand sew some running stitches onto that leaf. And this was important because we couldn't use a sewing machine at this stage. And I positioned the leaf onto the cover. You can see the veins there, and I ironed everything down, following which I hand sewed everything down. And there it is. Now you can see I'd used some simple running stitches. I chose to position a fat button in the middle of the folder to create a clasp. And here's some stretchy string to go with it. With a pencil I marked out the position of my button and sewed it down, and there it is. There's the button. And after sewing it down, on the back of the folder I marked out exactly where I want my eyelet hole to be, and I marked that out as well using a pencil. And these are my eyelets. This is the smallest size of eyelet I've got that works with the green machine. So I used those to create a hole in the back. There it is. And then using the stretchy cord, I threaded it with one bead on the outside, and then I passed both the ends through to the other side, and I threaded one more bead, and I just did a simple double knot, which can be shifted in case I want a bigger or a smaller loop. There's the loop all done, and then I just simply put the folder into its cover on both sides, and there it is, all done up. It's all finished. I think it turned out beautifully. I love the way it looks. It finished up beautifully on all 6 sides, as you can see. It's perfect for my needs. So there you have it, guys. A perfectly useful and totally beautiful and personalized journal cover or folder cover, whatever you may call it. I enjoyed and I loved every creative moment that I spent creating this. I spent most of yesterday working on it because I kept returning to little bits of it as I thought about it, and I just loved every bit of it. Go ahead and try it at home. Pick out any favorite television character, any favorite design that you've got, print it out or scribble it out on a piece of paper and get going. It's so much fun, and you can customize your books, your folders, your files, your folios as much as you want and really get to enjoy them. I know that because I spent so much time making this, I'm definitely going to use this much more productively than I would have used the tired looking old pink journal cover. And look, it's squishy. So this is a squishy Totoro journal cover. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you guys soon. Bye.